Let's continue on with the definition of biological anthropology and what it studies. Primatology is one subfield of biological anthropology, and it is the study of living and fossil primates. Studying the anatomy and behavior of our closest living relatives helps us understand what makes humans unique. Biological anthropology also includes paleoanthropology, which focuses on biological changes through time in order to understand how the human species evolved. Paleoanthropology basically studies human evolution by looking at fossils of extinct hominins. A hominin is basically an upright walking ape, or an ape that walks bipedally on two legs. We'll learn much more about bipedalism and these extinct species later in the semester. So paleoanthropology studies the evolution of anatomically modern humans, that's us, Homo sapiens sapiens, from an ape-like ancestor millions of years ago. So paleoanthropology takes a biocultural approach, focusing on the interaction between biology and culture. For example, when did humans begin cooking food, and did this change our biological evolution? Well, it did. You might learn more about that later in the semester. Forensic anthropology is another subfield of biological anthropology. It includes the identification of human skeletal remains for legal purposes, establishing age, sex, birth, population, stature, trauma, and disease. Another phrase for birth population would be ancestry, okay? Genetic anthropology uses genetic and biochemical techniques to answer questions about early human migration. So it studies DNA, basically, and by studying our DNA and different markers and different populations, we can figure out how anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, evolved in Africa and emerged, thus migrating to different continents across the globe. There are many other subfields of biological anthropology, including medical anthropology, nutritional anthropology, molecular anthropology, and paleopathology. So let's review. Physical anthropology is the study of human biology within the framework of evolution, with an emphasis on the interaction between biology and culture. Let me phrase that again in a different way. Physical or biological anthropology studies humans or the human species as a biological species that has evolved. So we learn about humans through evolution and their biological traits. Let's define evolution again. It's very important to know this week. Biological evolution is defined as a change in the genetic makeup of a population over time, or a change in gene frequencies in a population over time. And to review again, physical or biological anthropology is a scientific discipline concerned with the biological and behavioral characteristics of human beings and our closest relatives, the non-human primates. So let's talk about how the scientific method fits into this field of study. So science is a method of explaining natural phenomena. It involves observation, developing hypotheses to explain what has been observed, and developing a research design or a series of experiments to test these hypotheses. This is an empirical approach to gaining information. Empirical means that it's based on observation or things that people can measure with their senses, all right? It has to be measurable information, or we collect measurable information and then learn more about it. So physical anthropologists, as well as anthropologists in other fields of anthropology, adhere to the principles of the scientific method by identifying a research problem, like a question, in the traditional way you look at the scientific method, a problem or a question, and then gathering information to solve it. So there's a problem or a question, and then we gather data to solve it using different methods. Once a question or problem has been identified, the first step is usually to study the literature, like books and journals, to do academic research and determine what other people have done to resolve the issue. Based on this preliminary research and other observations, one or even several tentative explanations, also called hypotheses, are then proposed. The next step is to develop a research design or methodology to test the hypothesis. To test a hypothesis, scientists, including anthropologists, will collect data that can be studied and analyzed. Data can be collected and analyzed in many ways, most of them involving various statistical tests. Then after analyzing the data, the researcher or investigator will try to draw conclusions about the meaning or significance of their measurements. This body of information can become the basis of future studies. Hypothesis testing is at the very core of the scientific method and is based on the potential to falsify the hypothesis. Falsification can be used to refine a hypothesis and then subject it to further testing. Eventually, if a hypothesis stands up to repeated testing, it may become part of a theory or a theory itself.